Cowboys have a quarterback. They traded for a player in George Pickens that I think is going to make this a good passing offense this year. And without Micah Parsons, the defense instantly becomes one of the worst units in the NFL. It makes no sense. And again, even if they were to do it, let's say, and get all those draft picks, you get draft picks like that in hopes of getting a player like Micah Parsons, which never happens in the NFL because he's one of the 2 best pass rushers in the league. It's just insanity to me that it's even gotten to this point. And truly, if it happens, the fan base should be incredibly upset with Jerry Jones.
Yeah, well, I think we all agree. All summer long, we talked about Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson, and obviously Micah Parsons. And this seemed like the easiest one to get done, given age, productivity, and everything Mina said about the player. Yeah. With that said, there is a little bit of a mini bye week now, ironically, except for Philadelphia and Dallas being about 3 or 4 extra days in the calendar. So if Dallas was going to do this, guys, what I would be saying is to every team, by close of business tomorrow, I need your highest and best offer. Picks, players, whatever it may be. And I say this, we woke up this morning, and Dan Graziano had started this report. And if I was with the team and started Dan's report, I'm talking to ownership. I'm talking to our head coach. So if I'm teams in the NFC North and there's maybe a team that could be interested in him, I think the other teams would want to say, like, hey, wait, Micah Parsons is actually available. Like, what could we do here? And if I'm Dallas, I'm trying to hold an auction as fast as possible.
I think what's fascinating, if it does progress to the point where there's a trade, is it's trying to figure out what the return for a player like Micah Parsons at age 26 would be. I think you're talking about multiple very high picks, multiple first-round picks, and probably at least one defensive front seven player who's probably young and maybe on a rookie contract that can help replace Micah Parsons. The team that would be able to give all that and give Micah Parsons the contract he wants and fit them under their salary cap, all with a week to go before the season, it will be very interesting to see who that team turns out to be, if anyone.
Yeah, I feel like we're playing Mad Libs here. Like just none of this even makes any sense, and we're putting things in, and yet it's just incredible that we've even gotten to this point, as Mina said. Mike, obviously, and you alluded to this, every team could use a player like Parsons, but let's pick out a specific team or two that would benefit the most from getting him if Dallas does end up trading him. Yeah,
one point I would make to Dan's point, I was actually in that situation with the Jets when Brett Favre became available. Like, we had to figure out really quick, could we afford him, what we have to give up? We had Chad Pennington. You're going to have to move fast. And just focusing on the NFC North to answer your question, to me, I would start with Green Bay and Detroit. You put Micah Parsons on either of those teams, and you have to get past Philadelphia, San Francisco, all these other high-powered teams, Washington. He could be outcome determinative in terms of, like, we could get to the Super Bowl. And if I'm Brad Holmes of Detroit, if I'm Jason Light of even Tampa Bay, I would certainly try to get Dallas on the phone and close them out and say, we're not negotiating, I'm paying a bill. So, hey, if it's Green Bay, it's Devontae Wyatt and 3 first-round picks, whatever it may be. It's Brian Branch and 2 first-round picks. And I just want to know what the bill is. I'm going to get the head coach, I'm going to get the owner in the room, and we're going to make a decision really fast.
Ooh.
Green Bay, Tampa both make sense to me. I like those ideas. Detroit, a little bit apprehensive because they got to pay Aiden Hutchinson soon, so you'd be committing a lot of money to pass rushers. I'm going to throw out another team that I haven't seen people talking about. How about the LA Chargers? Ooh. Young roster. As a result, they have the second most cap space in the NFL, nearly $100 million next year. They already paid Justin Herbert. And the defense was really ahead of schedule last year under Jesse Minter. But when I look at the pass rush, you have Khalil Mack, who's nearing the end of his career, most likely. You have Tuli Tuipulotu, who's good. But Micah Parsons would really be a difference maker on that pass rush. I like a lot of the young players in the linebacking group, the secondary. That, to me, would be a difference maker and would make them they would make them contenders in the AFC.
You know, Mina, one of the teams that was brought up to me today was the other LA team, the Rams, because they have the kind of young defensive studs up front that you might be able to send back to make a deal like this work. So we could list every team. But I also think it's interesting to think about teams like say, the New England Patriots, who have a quarterback on his rookie deal and are trying to build something out for the future. Micah Parsons is not a one-year rental. Like, whoever trades for him, if someone were to trade for him, is probably anticipating having him for the next decade, which is what Dallas should be doing. But obviously, this thing's gone sideways.
This conversation has gone full circle. It goes back to what Mina said at the top of it, which is like the object of the exercise is to get a dominant young pass rusher. So, again, if I'm Dallas, at some point, you just have to sit down and say, hey, look, this offseason went as predicted. A year ago, it was Nick Bosa, roughly at $34 million. We're at $41.5 with TJ Watt. Let's just pay the bill and move on.
Yeah.
Because, again, when you trade for George Pickens, you have Dak Prescott under contract. You feel like you've made reasonable improvements in your passing offense. You have a chance with Parsons and no chance without him.
Yeah, you just got to do it. By the way, the season opens for them a week from today, and there's no better time than right now. Again, another reminder, too, that this timeline is going to happen really fast. Graz alluded to that as well. They've only got this a couple days, maybe, before they want to get something done. All right, time for some top stories. We'll keep an eye on this Micah Parsons situation. But let's go to the other side of the season opener. Graz, what is the latest in Philadelphia?
Guard Landon Dickerson, who had a procedure on his knee a couple of weeks ago, was actually back out on the practice field for the Eagles yesterday. Again, a week to go until the game. We don't know exactly how much he participated in practice, what he was able to do. The Eagles aren't saying because they don't have to. Their first official injury report of the week will come Sunday. At that point, we'll have a sense. But the Eagles have been optimistic that Landon Dickerson might be able to make week one. I wouldn't rule it out just yet. And Travis Hunter, who missed a few practices last week and the last couple preseason games with an upper body injury, back on the practice field yesterday as well. Their GM, James Gladstone, telling Hunter is full speed ahead for week one and plans to play on both sides of the ball.
I can't wait to see what that ends up looking like. We've got a lot more coming your way here on NFL Live, but how about this? New on the show from our Dolphins reporter, Marcel Louis-Jacques. Wide receiver Tyreek Hill participated in today's practice for the first time in 3 weeks. Hill's been dealing with an oblique injury. Head coach Mike McDaniel said this morning the belief is that Hill is on track. He's suspended for the first 6 games of the season for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. The suspension follows Rice's guilty plea to third-degree felony charges related to a March 2024 car crash in Dallas. So let's take a look at what his absence might mean for the Chiefs. Although they did make it back to the Super Bowl, the wide receiver group was underwhelming after Rice got hurt in Week 4. From Weeks 5 through 18, Chiefs wide receivers averaged the second fewest yards per reception, ranked 21st or worst in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Mina, how can they make sure they get more out of that wide receiver group to start the season without Rice, now that they know he'll be out for 6 games?
You know, it's going to look like a lot like it did in the second half of last season, Laura. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. While they didn't get a ton of production out of the receivers, it was still an efficient offense. Chiefs used a ton of 12, 13 personnel, putting multiple tight ends on the field. I think they figured out how best to utilize Xavier Worthy, not primarily as a downfield threat, but using him more on shallow concepts against man coverage underneath, manufactured touches. To me, though, the biggest thing that they can do to improve upon what we saw at the end of last year without Rice is not really about the receivers. Also, I should mention Hollywood Brown being back at some point could help, but more about the run game. This was the least explosive rushing attack in all of football last year. Isaiah Pacheco played briefly in the preseason game against Chicago, and I thought he looked more explosive than he did last season, so I think there's hope that farther removed from the injury, maybe they can get more from him on the ground. I think, to me, if they can get more out of him,